if you have had interactions with the criminal law system. I've done a lot of criminal law in Jamaica, and one thing that I always see, persons come back, and I was a prosecutor for a long time as well. Persons come back and ask, oh, I had a case here in 1999, and I need to see what happened. Here in America, they call it the disposition. In Jamaica, we say how it was disposed of. That too is a process. You will need to submit an application, and that application means that the court staff now have to track down your documentation for that particular case. Perhaps it was a case in one of the lower courts, especially if it was a criminal matter. A lot of those are disposed of in the lower court, what we call the parish court. Mm-hmm. And so it has to be, the documentation has to be found, because you have to prove, let's say, for example, you had an assault case, but when your police records are submitted, it says result pending. That's a flag. The US Embassy is going to say, well, we need to see something to prove that this was disposed of one way or another. A lot of persons, perhaps because of the trauma associated with the interaction and the interface with the criminal law system, may well say, I am just going to forget this happened and move on with my life. But unfortunately, as the immigration process begins to unfold, it literally comes back. Not necessarily to haunt you, but certainly it comes back, and you have to deal with it accordingly. So that is also something that I have seen that I think it bears recognizing, and it makes sense to advocate that persons ensure that should they have had any interaction at all with the criminal law system, that they ensure that they have the disposition regarding it. There is a scenario in Jamaica where in the court, a matter can actually have had no final, what's what I want? The matter did not end, as it were. Mm-hmm. So for example, two neighbors have an altercation, and we go to court and we say, well, we're neighbors, we have to live beside each other, and we agree that this is where it ends. Nothing is written down in the court sheet. There's nothing entered into any of the court's records. That is going to show up on your police record literally as a matter that is still to be disposed of. What you will now have to do is to return to the court where that matter took place. And usually that requires an attorney, because certain documentation has to be filed with the court. All previous documents that the court would have had have to be found, and the matter is put back before the court. And in so doing, the court will then give a final disposition, as it were.
What a nightmare have to go with that.
Indeed, it can well be a nightmare. And as I said, a lot of persons think, oh, this should be very easy. I have a 20-day deadline or whatever it is that you have. And so they think all of this has to be done and can be done quickly. But as we recognize, court is perhaps the only place where there is so much uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And so that is always something too that I suggest that persons ensure that they're mindful of. And remember, I think a lot of it perhaps stems from the fact that persons may not, as they're completing the forms, remember everything. And I always like to say, make notes, make little jottings of what's going on, so that as you go along, especially if you are not the person completing the forms, you are saying, oh yes, in 2005, X happened, or in 2020, Y happened. That's important. And as a lot of persons get assistance to complete their forms, perhaps there is information that lies within your bosom that you do not think is important, and the person who's completing the form assumes is unimportant. Mm-hmm. And so it's important, as it were, to ensure that you yourself, you're looking at the documents with a very keen eye.
Yeah.
Because after all, at the end of the day, it is your benefit that is going to be held up if there are issues. And God forbid, you do not want any allegations of fraud or, misrepresentation for what could have well been a simple mistake.
I hope you enjoyed this short clip from the material of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. If you want to get more information about becoming a premium member, just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com or visit the site immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, where you'll see links to a lot of the information that we have for premium members so you can get a better idea of what's there, as well as on the YouTube page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we have much more clips and material that's helpful. If you wanted to buy something a la carte, visit ilt.thinkific.com.